There is a huge list of movies that failed at the box office. Some were not understood by the audience, others failed to live up to inflated expectations. Sometimes the marketing campaign worked poorly. There are many reasons. There are even those pictures that were ahead of their time, but years later still found their audience and eventually became cult. Fight Club, Blade Runner, John Carter, Van Helsing, The Thing, The Fountain, Mr. Nobody. And it goes on and on and on, but that's an exaggeration. Today I want to talk about the 2008 film Teleport, created by director Doug Liman. The movie is based on the novel of the same name, Jumpman 1992, written by writer Stephen Gould. And personally, my opinion, there is nothing in common between the book and the movie, except the very idea of teleportation. And here I'm a bit exaggerated too, because Teleport, with a budget of $85 million, grossed $250 million. That's a success. For many, yes, except for Doug. This director was planning to create his own movie universe and couldn't recover from the criticism. Initially, when the first movie was being made, the studio planned a trilogy, but critics and audiences were not ready to face the reality. Everyone is used to the idea that if a person got superpowers, no matter how, from birth or he was bitten by a spider, then he is obliged to become a hero, save the world, and create an illusion of hope. And here it's the opposite. The protagonist enjoys life, robs banks, travels, and enjoys his ability, uses it for his own gain, and engages in battle with paladins to survive with ellipsism in reflection of his manifestation. It's because of this idea that I find Teleport the most plausible. What number of people have done exactly the same thing? Like the hero of the movie, live and enjoy life. Why work when you can rob a bank? Why would anyone want to know, to try to fix the world, to fight, when they can just enjoy their ability to do so? This is reality, not the illusion of choice, where everyone chooses the superhero path for some reason. The masks, the costumes, saving the world. Is that what the average person really wants? Where is the truth here? Movie critics did not like this very thing in the movie. The hero exalts himself to the top of the world and considers everyone else fools. He has the power of a god. Remember what David says at the very beginning of the movie. He was just traveling around the world, and that was a problem. The second was that the audience didn't fully understand the whole story of the war between the paladins and the jumpers. Why don't the hunters use firearms? Why does Roland need Charlemagne's ritual knife? And many other questions arise after watching the movie. Part of the story wanted to show in the next sequels. But since we are unlikely to see the sequel on our screens, I'd like to fill in the blanks. Is the picture really connected to the movie Butterfly Effect and everything takes place in the same movie universe? Also, at the end of the video, let's take a look at the 11 minutes that were cut from the movie. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there too. I won't procrastinate, I promise you. It's going to be interesting. I'll get started. So to begin with, we need to consider important aspects, details that we know from the movie, and numerous interviews of the director. But the most important resource is the original script. You can find all the answers in it. And the first thing I want to talk about is the age of the jumpers. All three teleporters shown in the movie have roughly the same age. David is 24 years old, Griffin is 26, Kamaru, who was killed by Roland at the time of his death, is 22. This is important. I'll explain it to you next in the video. They all have the ability to teleport at an early age, 5 years old to be exact. From the age of 5, you made your first jump. It's important for paladins to kill a jumper at an early age, as their power grows with each passing year, and at age 30, a new ability to travel through time is unlocked. This is something director Doug Liman has talked about in his interviews, that in the sequel, David will learn to go back in time, and time will be a normal point of departure for him. The paladins know this, so they try to kill the jumper before he turns 30. If the paladins know that a teleporter reaching a certain age will be able to travel through time, it means only one thing. It's already been happening. If we read the script, we won't find the answer there. Not even information about who's in charge of the Holy Order of Paladins, only that they're partly under the Vatican, and it's a secret religious organization that operates around the world. David's mother is a magister. It's one of the highest positions, and there are 10 masters in total. Each one does a different job. Roland is the main hunter. David's mother, Mary, is in charge of the search. She collects information, and if, for example, the bank was robbed, but the door of the vault did not open, it was she who sent hunters to the scene of the crime. So for a long time, David could not be found. Mary helped her son and covered her tracks. In the movie showed only 2 magisters, but in the script, there is also a Magister Astolf. This very old man was in charge of technology, knowledge, and studied jumpers for a long time. It was he who at a young age created weapons for paladins paladins and realized that high voltage does not allow jumpers to teleport, and it was Astolf who built a machine that allowed a normal person to pass into the rift of space created by teleportation. While David can easily use Griffin's movement points and follow him, ordinary people couldn't do that without a special machine. All this is described very well in Griffin's biography. Since it didn't make it into the movie, I want to elaborate on this point. Griffin and his parents originally lived in the UK until he made his first jump at the age of 5. After several unsolved suspicious events involving paladins, the whole family realized that their son was in danger, so they changed their residence every 6 months and lived secretively. At the age of 9, while living in San Diego, California, Griffin would return home after karate class. A known person filled in on him and he reflexively jumped away from the bully. The next day, paladins broke into the house. Griffin managed to teleport away, but his parents were killed and Roland killed them. By the way, only the chief hunter had the right to perform the execution ritual on jumpers. I'll tell you the reason further in the video, but the movie also says that Roland killed Griffin's parents. To lessen the depth of the police investigation, they planted cocaine at the crime scene, thus giving the impression of involvement in drug-related crimes. After surviving the Paladin's attack on his home, Griffin lived for several years with Sam, the man who found him in an empty neighborhood, and his partner Consuela. Shortly after he revealed his abilities to them, Sam began researching teleportation on the internet, which attracted the attention of the Paladins. The hunters were quickly on the trail of the jumper, but this time Griffin engaged Master Astolf and teleported him along with him. Griffin kept Astolf on a chain for a long time and got all the information from him about the machine that opened the portal for people, about Roland and the other magisters. He learned the history of the paladins and that they were religious fanatics, forbidden by their religion to kill, like all religions. Only the chief hunter, who is Roland, is allowed to kill jumpers while using a silver knife, an artifact that has been passed down to the chief hunter for generations. This knife belonged to Charlemagne, king of the Franks. Charlemagne founded the Order of Paladins in 871 AD. This is why all paladins do not use firearms, but instead a strange mechanism that allows them to link teleporters so that Roland can come and finish what he started. This hunter-killer is unlikely to go to heaven. He sacrifices his soul. The religious fanatic doesn't just kill the jumper, he performs some kind of ritual. All this is well described in the script, and I think Duck Lyman saved this information for future sequels. But still, there are moments that are described, but very poorly shown in the movie. For example, two important scenes when Roland is told that they managed to find David's trail. Then after the conversation, he puts the phone down and says the phrase, "Mary, we finally found him." That is, at this point, David's mother was close to Roland and was unable to cover her son's tracks. This is why the paladins were able to find David. If you look at this scene in detail, at one point you can still see Mary taking the machine that opens the portal, but all this was shown so quickly that the average viewer did not have time to follow the chain of events. The second point is how Griffin used his knowledge of the paladins. He knew that they had a machine that the hunters used to follow the jumpers. So after being spotted, before returning to his hole, he teleported to the bottom of the ocean before heading home. Everyone who followed him got trapped and drowned in the water. This scene is in the movie, but it is not revealed in any way at all. It's also not clear if Griffin met any other jumpers or if David was the first. The script says it all happened by accident in a bar, exactly as it was shown in the movie, and David was the first. And when Griffin talks about the man who tried to move the house, he learned that information from Master Astolf, and the script even gives the name of that jumper. It's Nikola Tesla. This is where it gets interesting. Tesla was a public figure, and how they wanted to use him in the movie is not clear. If you have a guess, post it in the comments. There is one more important moment that I almost forgot about. This is the first meeting between David and Roland. The paladin in the script says the phrase that of all you nervousnesses, I hate jumpers the most. There are similar words in the movie as well. Hence, there are still people with other abilities in this movie universe. According to the director, he was inspired by the movie Butterfly Effect. At one point in the movie, a scene was shown when David teleports to the roof of the Empire State Building. It was supposed to remind the moment of Evan's journey into the past from the movie The Butterfly Effect. Doug Lyman himself repeatedly said in interviews that in the sequel, in addition to jumps in space and time, people with other abilities, telekinesis, hypnosis, telepathy, and many other more down-to-earth superpowers were to appear. A second reference to the movie Butterfly Effect Doug was not allowed to use. When David asks Griffin if there are many of us jumpers like that, the guy had to say, "I also met a guy named Evan. He could go back in time, but he couldn't prove it." I believe him though. Personally, I think this scene could have expanded the whole story a lot more. Teleport and butterfly effect, one movie universe. Sounds cool, but it didn't come true. And the most interesting thing I left for last. A conversation that is in the script, but this important detail is not in the movie. It takes place during a meeting between Roland and David's father, William. When Roland finds Mary's picture and learns that one of the Paladin Masters is David's birth mother. He puts the picture down and says, "Surprise." It used to be so much simpler, they didn't even know where to jump. Throwing themselves from one room to another, but pictures, television, the internet gave them new opportunities. You know, they've gotten stronger, they've evolved, they're learning. It's been over 100 years. That's when the abomination learned to jump blindly, intuitively, and now it looks like there's another one. And worst of all, he knows everything about us. This has never happened before in our history. In my opinion, these are the most important words in the script. At first glance, it doesn't seem important, but it's not. There's a ton of information here. First, we learned that paladins had it easier in the past. The way I see it, in the olden ages, when someone made a jump in space, it was a miracle. Any miracle was controlled by the church. And the church and the paladins are connected. Hunters on a tip would come into a town or city and kill an unsuspecting jumper who, even in an attempt to escape, didn't know where to hide. There were no pictures back then. There's a reason we were shown hundreds of photo cards in David's apartment. So it's just one thing. The teleporter needs to visualize a place in his head to jump to. There was no travel, no internet, no TV back then. People lived in one city and died in the same city. They didn't see anything else in life, which is why Roland says they jumped from room to room. The second thing we learn from his words is the Paladin's main weapon. It's surprise and secrecy. The teleporters don't know they exist, so they have no idea that anyone is after them, that there is a weapon and a machine that helps to pass into the rift to an ordinary person, all for the sole purpose of killing an unsuspecting jumper. We also realize that teleporters learn and become stronger, but that's already shown well in the movie. Think back to David's first jumps. They left a rift in space. In the beginning, you can see cracks in the walls. Some eventually healed, but still the destruction of teleporting remained. After 8 years of experience, David is already perfectly in control of the process. His jumps are fast and accurate, but when he is under emotional stress, like in the scene where David finds his wounded father, his brain can't concentrate, so we see a huge dent on the floor of the clinic. I think it is because of such quick and sloppy jumps, the trace remains deeper, and it can be easily found by the very machine that opens the portal. And the third most interesting thing, Roland recalls that over 100 years ago, there was a unique jumper who teleported intuitively, and another one has appeared. He doesn't mean David, but Griffin. At one point in the movie, when Griffin steals a car and drives through town, he teleports without seeing where, intuitively. Plus, he knows all about the Paladins. This jumper's a lot stronger than David. He didn't even know it was possible to move large objects like a car or a house with him. Personally, my opinion, the creators have poorly worked out the details in the picture and did not reveal the full potential of the script. If you say that it was necessary to show the movie to the test group first and then release it, then you are right, and to your surprise, the studio did so. In 2007, Teleport had a test screening where the audience liked the idea, but that's who the Paladins are. They didn't get it at all. Then the studio sent the picture to reshoots, allocated an additional budget, and finally finished filming the scenes that were already in the script. Basically added only the story of Roland, the scene where the hunter killed Nakamaru. It wasn't in the first version of the movie. Also, the meeting between the Paladin and William Rice. In the original, David's father opens the front door and sees Roland standing on the threshold. That was the end of it. They also added a dialogue between Griffin and David where he learns who the Paladins are, part of their purpose and a brief history, but that wasn't enough. We still need to use the maximum and not leave for the sequel the most important thing, the foundation of the movie, the story. What do you think? Did you like Teleport as much as I did or not? Write in the comments. Well, now it's time to look at all the cut scenes that were not included in any version of the movie, but they were filmed. Let's take a look at them. The first thing we learn is David's problems. He's having uncontrollable jumps. He falls asleep in his house, and in the morning he wakes up in his father's house, in his former room. Sometimes he's moved to the kitchen, and then back to his father's house. William tries to talk to his son each time. We even see David see a doctor who explains to him that this is happening subconsciously. He wants to go home and talk to his his father and is drawn back to his hometown as he is constantly thinking about him. In the next shot, we are shown Roland coming into the office and writing something down in a book, very much like a family tree, and then picks up a picture of David's mother, Mary, as if guessing that she might have had a teleport baby. And we're also shown Roland's son, to whom he explains that when he grows up, he too will be doing an important job, stopping people who have the power to change history. I mean the past. These words confirm the director's words. The time jumper acquires the ability to travel through time, thus can change history. Well, and the most interesting is the answer to the question why the Paladins did not use the machine that opens the portal in David's apartment. We're shown a lab where the strange machine is being repaired. Most likely after using it and killing it on Kamaru, something broke and it was repaired. Strangely, it's not in the script. Maybe that scene was filmed after the preview, but in the end, they still abandoned the idea. Next, we see that David is in trouble again. He wakes up in the library of his hometown, the place where he made his first jump, but he already has Griffin watching over him. Remember the cave where David teleported Roland to at the end of the movie? That place is in the script too. David often rested there when his condition worsened. He would move into the cave and spend days killing time there. He even tried to set it up as a dwelling and hid money and gold there. Also, the movie skipped the scene after the credits, where we are shown that Griffin survived, but is still in, shall we say, an uncomfortable position. None of this has much bearing on the events in the movie, but some things I still couldn't understand. For example, the strange book and Charlemagne's silver knife. If you examine it, it doesn't look like an ancient artifact. It's a piece of metal, and the handle is metal. Perhaps some holy relic has been melted down. But what I don't understand most about this point is the cloth in which the knife is wrapped. You can see it's old and soaked in blood. All the teleporters that were caught and killed by the Paladins. If you have any guesses, post in the comments. Together we can get to the truth. If you learned something new, then write in the comments what it is. I hope you liked my work. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and the highest praise for me will still be your support. See you soon.